whatever you're doing to grow, like there is the give and take, push and pull, and like you'll go through those growing pains. It's a necessary part of the process and getting uncomfortable with taking big risks, right? To get to that next level.
Growth is painful. Change is painful, but it's for a purpose.
Welcome back to another episode of the Rough Cut Club. I am your host, Joey Nicotra, here with my wonderful co-host, Mr. Shane Reitzammer. Shane, how you doing, brother?
Good, man. Glad to be in the studio making another podcast with my bro.
Man, just gratitude right now that we are as far into this thing as we are. And once a dream and an idea and a concept, and now we are here helping people advance in their film careers and guide them on their journey, which is, what we're here to do. Even more specifically today is talk about advancing in your film career.
And even with all the hot topics, we haven't physically gotten a fight. We haven't burned down the studio, and no one has died. So it's been pretty good.
Knocking on wood right now.
Did I just jinx this episode?
Yeah, right. Awesome, man. Well, one of the things for those who are listening that we want to really kind of dive deep into today is advancing in your career and climbing that ladder. There's a lot of different things that means from just like a skill standpoint, from a job standpoint, from a rate standpoint. And we kind of want to jump into a lot of different specifics in terms of how you can begin to advance in your career and climb to that next step.
And I would say too, with all humility, I don't think we've ever, we haven't arrived.
You never arrive.
You've never arrived. It's about the journey. So I think, we have some valuable lessons, hopefully, that and ideas and opinions.
Yeah.
But there's just so much out there, right? And it depends what industry within the film industry that you're a part of. But hopefully we can drop a couple of nuggets that maybe a light bulb goes on and helps someone increase either their rate or their skill or even their career direction as they advance in the film industry.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the fun hot topics to jump into right off the bat is the money side, right? So let's jump into
Show me the money.
Show me the money, baby. Let's jump into the rate conversation. In your opinion, what are some ways that filmmakers can increase the amount of money that they make as they navigate their career?
So as a producer, when I'm hiring for a project, I think what I look at in the traditional film space world is current market rate, right? What is the going rate for a DP? What is the going rate? But it's so relative, right? So, it's on this project, they got paid $1,500 for the day, and on this it's $800, because there's different types of film projects, from a corporate to a wedding to a narrative. But I would say two things that always come into play is portfolio experience, right? Show me your work, show me what you did on that, show me how many projects you've worked on and who you've worked with, because I kind of need to know you as a person as well. Do you play nice with a lot of people, or are you always working with this one person? How are you going to play with us?
Right.
So and then gear, right? And that's a whole nother debate. Is your kit included? And I think we dive into this. This is interesting because I think neither way is wrong. But there's an interesting perspective when dealing with a producer, or if you are that freelance production company, solo operator, or even a small company, and you're dealing with a consumer, a client that doesn't understand the film industry, right? Yeah. So typical in the narrative world, you've got your day rate, okay, and then you've got your kit, right? Your camera, all that stuff. But when you're dealing with a client that isn't a huge brand that has a media department that understands the budget breakdown, what we do at Cinema Story is wrap everything together, right? So I don't want you to have to worry about, there are specialized things. If you want a FPV drone shot, you want, maybe all red cameras, that's going to obviously change rate. But we have basic kit rates wrapped into our
just day rate.
Exactly. And so it cleans it up. And so I'll say this as a producer, when I have brought in a mixture of people, freelancers outside of like our Cinema Story network, it's like, okay, well, tell me your rate, and I want to know everything. Like, I don't want any surprises because I'm building the budget or managing the budget with the client, and then it's like, oh, well, you didn't say that you needed, for me to bring a camera. You just hired me as a DP, like, so just clarity in your communication is key. And then, if we're going to the question of how to increase your rate, right? So I think getting more reps in, right? Having that portfolio work to show. And the gear, it plays an aspect as well, like your knowledge of the gear and your access to the gear. But I will say the number one thing about rate is the demand. Right? Because I don't care if you're like, well, my rate's $2,500 a day. Well, how busy are you? Right? How many times do you get hired? So let the demand determine your rate.
Love it.
But I also don't like that to fluctuate either, right? I also say your rate is your rate. Stick to it. One of my biggest pet peeves is somebody, I remember hiring a DP or interviewing some DPs for a project, and they're like, well, what's your budget?
Yeah.
And then I'll tell you my rate. And I'm like, no, you tell me what your expertise, like I've told you the outline of the project and what's going to be needed. Gear aside, tell me what you need to be paid for your labor, for your expertise, for X many days. And I couldn't get that from them. And I'm like, well, I can't build a bid and project and budget.
Yeah.
So I pass. All right. So that's one of my biggest deterrences. And I love DPs that can tell me like, hey, my rate's this. And a lot of people also make, I wouldn't call a mistake, but it's like, so my rate is $1,500, but I'm flexible.
Right.
And I always, when I hear that, I go, you don't believe that you're worth that rate.
Yep.
And so I would not use that term. It drives me crazy. And I don't use it with clients. I don't say, hey, this project's going to cost you $3,500, but we're flexible on the price.
Yeah.
Because what does that sound?
It's like, well, now our budget just went down by $50 an hour or whatever for you because that's all we got. And now that's money in my pocket. You know what I'm saying?
Right. So if you stick to your rate, create your rate. But if you're not booking projects and you're not getting paid, and you have to analyze, is the rate the deterrent, or is it your work, or is it your gear, right?
Yeah.
So if a rate is a hindrance for you getting hired, maybe try going down on your rate and make it, that's my new rate. This is what I'm presenting to everyone, not just, it's to Shane and it's to Joey, it's different. Because that gets around in the network as well, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's huge. And so I would say reduce scope of work. Okay. The only thing that I'll negotiate on with a client is, I don't have the $10,000 budget for this, whatever project. Well, here's what we can do. We can do a half day of production. You're going to have to lose all of these scenes. You're only getting, now the project's changing to like a talking head interview with some B-roll.
Right.
But that's what I can do for you. I can't reduce rates to my team members. I can't reduce the rate of the edit and all the overhead, but I can reduce the scope of work to fit within your budget.
Yep.
Right. So
that's super good.
So for maybe DPs, where does that come in? Hey, my rate, it's X. And that's a 10-hour day or a 12-hour day or an 8-hour day, whatever it is. And you go, well, yeah, I could do that, but it's now a 5-hour day or an 8-hour day. So a way to negotiate, reduce scope of work.
Yeah.
Don't ever discount your rate.
One of the things that I'll add to that is whether you are a freelance filmmaker or a company trying to charge a specific rate, your rate is directly tied to the value that you provide that production. And so whether you are, a company charging a client, what kind of value am I bringing to you with this final product? If I'm a freelancer, what value am I bringing to set with me, right? If I'm an editor, what kind of value am I editing or adding to the project in post on this assignment? And so sometimes that doesn't even look like gear. Sometimes it's also experience, right? So like the experience that you provide the client, the experience that you provide the crew around you, like what kind of ways can you add value to a production to where you are now a more expensive asset in the field? You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And I think even, how we used to bid out some commercial projects, it's like if you're doing multiple jobs, my rate is different.
Right.
If I am producing and I'm running audio and I'm operating B cam, like I'm doing 3 people's jobs. And so that's another way, like you said, the experience and the value that you're bringing to that production. And so we started to bill like, hey, like we need to compensate this person because they're doing multiple positions, or we need to meet somewhere in the middle, to make sure that they're doing triple the work of 3 positions. So I think that's huge. The value that you bring to, and so finding out about the production, right? Is it a bunch of green filmmakers, and you're the most? I know I've heard from you. You've had a couple of projects like that, and you're ended up putting on a workshop while you're making the film, and you help the wheels not fall off. Sometimes you don't know that until after all of those decisions have been made, and you can't really get that on the back end. But it is something to find out as well. And the other thing on the rate too, I would say, man, something that I still have to learn, and I've learned with producing, is all of the work that goes on before your actual rate day, right? Don't forget to charge or discuss scope of work, right?
Yeah.
DP, are you creating a shot list? Are you building the gear via the budget, the gear list, the rentals? Or is the AC, your first AC, you doing that and you're just giving direction?
Are you driving to a rental house?
Yeah.
All of these
so
things
much
that
to be
factor
considered
into your bottom line hourly rate once you've done invoicing, once you've done all of your email correspondence, you did your production meeting and you did your tech scout and you did this, that, and the other. Like, make sure that, you're losing an entire day plus just in those few things that I mentioned. And there's more that is added on top of that. And so, just going back to what you said, like defining the scope of the work and the parameters and what all your rate includes, and then making sure that when you show up, like you are giving that production excellence. You know what I mean? Like there's so many
super important. There's been so many times because nobody wants, what is it? The buyer beware. The buyer when you regret your purchase. What is that?
Buyer's
called?
remorse.
Right? And so, when you're
How many times have we hired a contractor and it's like, gosh, dang it. Like,
when you're on, you got to be on, right?
Yeah.
And so and that's that excellent, and that's the success of, and you better know what you're doing too.
Right.
So I would say that too, like your experience level, even your confidence in yourself. And I guess going back to the original, like value to maybe a filmmaker who's considering about changing their rates is like, you need to be confident in your rate and the value that you bring.
Bro, 100%. That's one of the things that when I, like earlier on, I was talking with people who were coming up the ladder and they were like, so be real with me. What are you charging for a day rate? Like, I just need to know. So like, I don't go too high or too low or whatever. And I told them a number. And then very soon after that, I see these newbie up and comers trying to charge the same thing that I'm charging when they have not climbed to that point yet. And that's no shade, but like when I first started out in the industry, it was like, hey bro, $20 an hour. Like I'm building my portfolio. I have no body of work to give you right now. I have been on like 3 sets in my life. Like I am a $20 an hour contractor because I have a gear or like the camera and I know how to hit record. And as you grow, like your rate can grow with the quality that you provide and the amount of knowledge that you provide. And so like there's this one little I think I saw it like on like Facebook or Instagram or something. And like this contractor is like, yeah, it's going to be like $1,000 for me to come and fix your door. And he shows up and he does it in like 5 minutes. And they're like, what? That's $1,000? Like it only took you 5 minutes. And they're like, no, but you're paying me for the 10 years that it took for me to learn how to fix it in 5 minutes. Right.
Preach.
And so for us, like the value that we are bringing, like you're paying for years of experience and knowledge and wisdom and how to fix a tech issue immediately so that it's not costing production, hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in downtime because you didn't know the tech on how to fix it, right? So you having that experience level to where you can make sure that something operates smoothly, efficiently, effectively, and you got your reps in, like that is directly tied to the value that you bring and your rate.
Yeah, and I say even the confidence thing, that's where I'm still growing. Like my director rate has slowly increased over the years, where my DP rate was already where I wanted it to be, and I kind of like capped out and was like, I'm kind of moving into directing. And then it was like, I got to start over. Like, I don't have the reps on directing,
right?
At the time. And I've slowly gotten some of those reps in, but not in all areas. And so,
right.
My director's rate is lower than, another director's rate, and that's okay. Then that's where like you need to know the industry standards and market standards so you can position yourself well within it, but don't price yourself out of it, right? Based on your experience level and your competence in it, right? And as I grow in knowing how to execute everything that I want to do as a director on set, my rate will reflect that. And I will also let the demand of the market reflect that. So when I think we go back to our company, we were doing so many weddings that we realized we were like, we haven't had a weekend off in like 3 years. And so it's like, let's raise the price and do less weddings, but still make the same income because obviously the quality and the value is there, and we're in such high demand that we can't do them all. So you're able to raise the value and book less projects and still make somewhere in the same ballpark.
Yeah.
And now you're getting additional time back that you can utilize in other ways.
And that was one of the big, I guess, like KPIs, if you will, of when to raise rates is when you're feeling yourself stretched by how many bookings you're getting, then it's time to raise your rate. Like that is an immediate factor. If I am constantly buried, can't keep up with personal life stuff, and I'm just constantly taking on more work, then it's time to raise your rate because the demand for you as a contractor is so high. Or even as a company, right? If you own a production company and you can't keep up with hiring people or contractors, you need to raise your rate so that you can climb to the next level and then fill up that next, just climbing to that next level in your career. The other thing that I also want to add about the rates conversation is that if you are charging too low, on the reverse side of advancing, that is speaking to the amount of value that you're providing, right? And so if you're trying to say, hey, my day rate is $150 or whatever, I'll come out and I'll do whatever you want, and it's that is you speaking to the quality of work that you're going to be providing to the client. And so just playing devil's advocate for a second, you want to make sure that you're charging appropriately for the value and that you're not speaking down on your own work by trying to undercut the competition.
I heard this on another podcast that I love, How I Made This, with Guy Raz, and he was interviewing, and I can't remember the entrepreneur. I should really know this person. A lot of people say this, but price is the number one perceived value of quality, right? So if you look at a Lexus and a Honda,
right?
The Lexus has big dollars behind it and you perceive it as higher quality. But and that can be true, but when you break down the parts, they're both cars, they both get you to where you need to go.
Yep.
Right. And so, to your point, there is a time to charge that small amount. Like you said, I don't have the reps, I don't have the portfolio, I don't have the gear. I want to learn, I want to add value and build that, right? That's when you need to be charging those lower rates. And then once you do have that, that's where I'm saying don't be flexible don't say, well, yeah, I guess I could do that project for you for $500. Because now it's the name your own price game, right? Yeah. I don't let clients play that. And I don't expect freelancers to make them play that game either. However, you could price yourself out of my budget really quickly. So you do have to kind of consider, and I get that's where what's your budget question is, because they don't want to say a rate and then lock themselves out. But what you're doing to me as a producer is you're putting me in a spot where I can't even include you in this project bid that is either built or closed. And it's funny because I think some DPs or other positions think well, if there might be more money there that I can make, right? And that's how it comes across. It might not be that what they're trying to make it perceived, but I'm I've had DPs undershoot, and I'm and I say, okay, well, that's great, that's your rate, but we're going to actually pay you X, which is more, because here's what the scope of work is, and here's what I have in the budget to pay you.
Yeah,
I try to be a fair contractor, and so I don't, tell me what your rate is, but this is what I have to pay this position. And, can we make this work? And again, I don't want you to come down from your rate. It's already going to exclude you. Right.
Right. Yeah. And I think, one of the things being a filmmaker is you will lose jobs because of your rate. That is part of the game, and you have to get okay with that. When you're getting started, it's really easy to be like, I just want to work. I just want to work. Like I'll do it for free, bro. But you can't let them know that. But as you continue to grow and advance in your career, you will lose jobs because you're too expensive, and that is okay. Because a lot of times you are moving yourself into a new bracket of clientele where,
you will also lose jobs because you're too cheap. That's
will.
the other the perceived part of quality, right?
Right.
And so, and that's great, man. You got to just be set up your expectations for failure in that. And it's not failure. They weren't your client, or it wasn't your job that you needed to do. And that's what I tell people all the time when people get mad about, why are these kids coming in and charging $800 for this video project, and it should have been I'm like, that's not my client that they took. No. I'm not doing I did those projects way back in the day. That's how you got your reps in and built a portfolio. And so I'd be mad at that kid if they stayed at $800 and they started and they were making as great of work as we were. And I'd go, man, I guess it is a race to the bottom because we've been overcharging, right? And I know the scale of the business, it costs way more than that. It's not sustainable at that, right? But that kid has to get those reps in that portfolio. So I respect that. I'm not mad, and it's not my client that they are taking.
Yeah, and it's like if you look at any other line of like a business, right? Like going back to the car piece, right? Like there are so many different price points and quality points of cars and products, and filmmakers are kind of like different cars. You know what I mean? Like there's different qualities, there's different quirks, there's different features with these different filmmakers, and it's like people are shopping around. Like some people want other things. Or like maybe price is the biggest thing. Maybe quality is the biggest thing, whatever it is. Maybe the camera, like you may not have the right camera to just be a compatible fit with what another studio has. Maybe that simple.
Joey, if you were a car, you'd be a Land Rover.
Ooh, I like that.
You're beautiful.
Can I be like the new Defender?
Oh, you want to change your car?
And
your utility, you know what I mean? And I'm not saying you're boxy because Land Rovers are a little boxy.
I'm a little boxy.
But you're worth the price.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. What car do you think you would be if you were
Honda Civic? I'm going to get you where you
need
to go.
You're a Civic?
No.
You're a RAV4, baby.
Oh, let's go. A little utility, cheap, good on gas mileage, right? I shouldn't say cheap, affordable.
What filmmaking car are you?
Leave it in the comments. What filmmaking car do you think Joey is? Ooh. And what filmmaking car Shane is? Ooh. And then your car.
Tesla, baby.
Tesla. Oh, running on electric.
That's a weird analogy.
Yeah, I don't know how that one's going to work.
But it just I feel like it works.
think we'll get 0 comments.
Yeah. So move. Anything else you want to add on rate really quick?
Rate's such a big thing, but I would say let the demand, like you said, like we both said, determine your rate. That's when you're going to know you need to raise it. I think there is a ceiling, though. Like I think at some point, because it depends. If you're talking as a freelancer or as a production company, you got to figure out, do I just need more people or do I need to increase the rate? Right. So there is a ceiling, and then I think we covered it, man.
Yeah. So jumping into like quality, right? Like that's a really easy one to just be like, oh yeah, like do more reps, get better. But like, talk to me a little bit about like how people can advance from a quality standpoint, in your opinion. Like not like non-generic ones. What are some ways that people can advance?
That's a good question. I think non-generic. Putting in the reps, I know that's pretty generic, but practice, right? Yeah. And we said that on the beginning in the filmmaker career.
Yeah.
Let's get specific. I want to say spec shoots. I want to say passion projects, because when you take the time to invest in something that you're passionate about, that you're not getting paid for, you'll be surprised what you'll learn and what you'll create.
Yeah, you wind up creating outside of the sandbox that you normally play in a lot when you do your passion projects, because you don't get to do those type of work, those type of jobs very often. Man, one of the other things that I would add to that is being like associating yourself with people that are moving differently than you, um even not necessarily even better than you, right? Because that's an easy one. It's like, oh, if someone's working, um if someone is like better than me at my craft, like obviously being around them is going to help me grow. But something that I have found, that even just working with more groups of people, even if they are not as good as me, has shown me ways on things not to do that have been hugely beneficial to carry into my career, right? So like diversifying the amount of people that you're working with has helped me increase the quality output that I am giving my clients and my team.
Learn from the school of hard knocks
School
of
hard
others.
knocks. That's right. That's right.
That's the best way to take that
Yeah.
class. Yeah.
And I'll say too, like there is like when working with people who are further along than you, you can be aggressive and be on the offense and go after like, hey, shoot him a DM. Like, I want to work with you. Your work is dope. And I think that's fire. But when you find yourself like on a set with somebody who is going to be a great networking opportunity, like that's a moment to capitalize. And not only that, but a lot of times some of the people that I have met on different productions have been the catalyst to get me to a bigger job, or to introduce me to this producer or to this director. And one of the, I may have told this story before, but I got the very first Netflix set that I ever got onto was through shooting somebody a DM, and just being like, "Hey, dude, I'm happy to be extra hands on set." Like I was already more than qualified to do some of these jobs, but I was like, "Hey, you know, with this specific person, I'm happy to be free extra hands just to get an opportunity to work with you."
Network, yeah.
Networking. And I wound up meeting a producer who got me onto another Netflix set, who got me like a paying job, and like it's this snowball effect of, you know, making the most out of an opportunity, and surrounding yourself with other people, or reaching for other people who you can grow from and learn from and get more jobs from and bigger productions and stuff like that.
I got another specific way to upgrade your quality, and it's pay to play, pay to take a course, a class,
self-invest.
Yes, because it puts more skin in the game for you.
Yeah.
We talk about this, all the time. The University of YouTube, right?
Yeah.
Honestly, everything's out there. You can go learn it.
Right.
But when you pay and invest, and sometimes it's even a parameter of like, there's a lot of virtual stuff, but when it's like, oh, I actually have to show up and do these hours, they make you do those reps.
Yep.
Right. And so that is a way to increase your quality. And it's anybody, like, I would love to go take a producing or directing or a edit, even though I don't edit anymore. It'd be cool to take that class to one, re-practice those reps, but then also learn more that I didn't know that I can now apply as a producer.
Good.
Right.
That's good. Yeah. Anytime I've ever paid for something, I'm like, forget all of this other stuff. Like I have to like focus in on what I've been putting off, because so often we know what we need to work on to climb to that next level, but it's not always fun to like deal with the journey of learning it, right? Like when you're getting started and like, oh, like we added lights, we did this, like this is my first HMI, like whatever it is, like some of those things are really fun, like leveling up. But if you're learning like a new software, right? Or if you're learning After Effects for the first time, like you're animating stuff, like animation is this whole other world. Blender, like you got Cinema 4D, Nuke, all these like crazy programs. Like FPV was one, right? Like I'd been wanting to learn how to be an FPV pilot for so long, but it was just so easy to put off that I didn't. But when you actually take the time and be like, all right, I'm going to buy it, I'm going to put some skin in the game, then it forces you or pushes you to want to learn and grow to reach that next level.
Yeah, absolutely. So spec shoots, passion projects, like put in the reps in ways that aren't paid, because, I think the quality can just increase and you're going to grow as a filmmaker. Yeah. The networking is so huge, like you mentioned, man. I think you can learn so much from there.
Go ahead.
And I would say this one is kind of generic that I'd add, but man, a big thing that I see we see on Instagram, and I mean, we're all guilty of doing it, but everybody copies everybody else, right? And there's the saying that everything is copy, but being different and unique in the marketplace. So I would say study everybody else, study the, what they're doing right, but be the trendsetter.
Right.
Figure out how, and when you figure that out, tell us how to do it too, because it is hard. Everyone struggles with that, but find your uniqueness, and that happens as you progress in your film career, and you find ways that aren't 100% knockoff copies or even 30% knockoff copies. Be the trendsetter. Try something new. Do it with purpose, right? Like I love Mr. Robot, right? The TV show.
So good.
And like they break so many of the rules in cinematography, and you're uncomfortable. And then you're like, this is beautiful. And I understand why you're doing this, because this is making me feel a way like the actor is feeling in this moment. And you're making me, the viewer, experience the discomfort this character is having.
Well, and like to your point, like whether like it's niching down, right? Like you're getting really granular on what you do better than anything else. And whether that is a like post-production stylistic design, like when you go to someone's Instagram or see their portfolio and their reel, it's like they have a very definitive style that makes this person unique or makes me want to work with this person for this specific type of project. But even like from like a general sense of like the craft that you do, when you niche down in your craft, like if you want to advance in the career as a DP, like start only doing DP work, and you will wind up building your portfolio and building your clientele and the connections that you have. And as you work towards one specific thing, you will get further in that one specific thing.
100% true. And it's sometimes hard to do too, right? Like personal story, when I wanted to move more into just directing and producing, I took a big money hit because I was making a lot of money being a DP or a camera op or a camera team, gimbal op. And I said, my focus is directing, producing, running the business even. And I stopped taking those jobs and I started giving those jobs to other filmmakers in our company and our team. And it was like this painful like thing where I was like, but I'm losing so much money. But now I've developed my director portfolio and I'm able to up my rate, right? Like we were talking about the rates thing. And now I want to be known as the director producer, and that's within the company and even with our clients. That's how they look at me now, and not just a DP or a gimbal op, because I niche down. And so same thing for you. Your DP, like, will you go PA on a set? Maybe for that networking like experience, right? Would I do something different? Yes. The answer is yes, maybe.
Right.
But I think it's so important to, and I think, building that personal brand around Joey the DP.
Yep. Well, and I always, like nobody ever talks about the growing pains associated with growing in your craft, right? And so like, as you continue to get better, like more money, more problems, right? Like there are things that as you grow, become new problems that you have to deal with, whether you're moving out of being a camera person to a director, producer, person, and that's like your new branding and whatnot. Whether your rate is growing and now you're in a new tax bracket and you're like, oh crap, I got to figure out taxes. Like whatever you're doing to grow, like there is the give and take, push and pull, and like you'll go through those growing pains. But it's a necessary part of the process, and getting uncomfortable with taking big risks, right? To get to that next level.
Growth is painful. Change is painful, but it's for a purpose, right? I have a 9-month-old daughter, and
Shout out
Kaya, and I see that, like you see it in real time and really quickly, like her teething.
Yeah,
and it's so painful for her, and just throws fits and crying, but you're going to get through this, and then you're going to have some chompers, and you can eat some real food. You know what I mean? And that's the thing. Like, you're going to go through some painful times.
Yeah.
But this is encouragement. Like, I've gone through that. Like, I've made $30 to $40 to $50,000, maybe not 50, but $30,000 less in a year because I had a change in direction, whether it's company or career, even the personal branding, right? But on the other side of that, it gets better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so niching down eventually, the podcast, the beginning as a filmmaker, you need to experience a little bit of everything and find your sweet spot.
Sure.
But now, if you're listening to this podcast, it's time to niche down.
That's right. One other thing that I want to talk about that sometimes isn't a popular topic is the topic of luck. And there is an element of luck that nobody wants to talk about in terms of advancing in your career, that certain people are going to have more of it, and it is going to come easier to those people than other people. But what I will say, so like for instance, like I got lucky that I met you when I did at that early on in my career, and somebody may not have met a person who really made a big impact on their life as early into the game as say I did. But there are things that you can do to make your own luck and to influence the luck that you have, right? Like someone who wakes up super early every morning is going to have a much easier time finding luck than somebody who won't. And so someone who is constantly studying is going, or constantly networking is going to have more luck meeting someone who is going to help them advance in their career or, make an impact on them. And so I think there is an element of luck to it, but I think that you can influence the amount of luck that you have in your career by showing up and doing what you're supposed to do.
Yeah. And I think, luck, fate, God, chance, right? Yeah. Whatever you believe in, it is about putting yourself in those rooms and putting in, networking.
Yeah.
Like, I think to your point, you can't sit in the closet waiting for something lucky to happen. You got to get out there and put your self in positions where something can become of the situation.
Yep. I talk about preparation meeting opportunity a lot, and if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready. Like when an opportunity comes to you, like if you are ready for that opportunity, you will be able to capitalize on it. And I'll be honest, like there have been moments when that hasn't happened to me, right? So like there was a feature film that I lost the opportunity to DP on because I hadn't finished my DP reel at the time. And it was like I got passed up because I was not prepared at that time for a feature film role, because who wants to hire a DP without a DP reel, even if they're qualified to do it at that point in time, And
to clarify, you had the reps, you had the footage.
Right, I had the footage.
That's
I just hadn't put the reel together.
Yeah.
And it's like I lost out on an opportunity where I could have made my own luck because I had not showed up prepared. And it's like I'm sitting on reel footage that I didn't put together, and thus I missed a feature film because I chose not to make my own luck in that moment. You know what I mean?
Great example, man.
Yeah. Man, this has been great. Are there any other things that you want to leave our listeners with before we wrap out of here? I know we talked a lot about, like, obviously rate is a big one where you can advance. Quality is a big one where you can advance. There's networking. There's a ton of other things. But
it really depends on where you are in your career, right? I mean, if you're still starting out, there's internships. There's, doing the free reps or the reduced reps. If you're established, but you're trying to cross over into the narrative world, right? Like being ready and being in the right rooms, networking. There's just so much. And I know that you and I are still learning both in the commercial and the narrative space, even more so in the narrative space that we're crossing into. And so, man, I just wish everybody the best in their pursuit. And I will say it's hard work, especially being a freelancer. You have to be so self-motivated, right? And being ready. Like, back to your example of like that reel, it's like, well, dang, if I just would have put time into that and had that, like being ready for that, right? And so that was one thing I want to end with on my side is positioning yourself in that position before you're even there. And I think I've talked about this on another podcast, or it wasn't even the Rough Cut Club, but it is, I wanted to be a filmmaker, and I started calling myself a filmmaker before I was. Now, I'm not saying go out and lie to somebody and say, I'm a DP. And they're like, okay, what have you DP'd? And you're like, but you have to start believing in yourself.
Right.
And then putting things around you that will put you into that position. Right. So get those reps in, but believe in yourself and start positioning and branding yourself as that DP as soon as you can.
Love it.
And you will attract the opportunities. You'll attract that luck, or like I believe in God has a big thing to play in it as well.
Absolutely.
And so I'll sign off on this. Man, my own life, I've had a lot of ups and downs, and faith in religion isn't for everybody, but that has gotten me through advancing in the film career. And I have to shout that out, because when I chose to go do an international documentary for $0 over making $90,000 in like 2012, that was a ton. It's still a ton of money. It's a bag. I'd love to make that. So it was the security too of working in corporate America, and I chose that, and I had to sit and pray and ask for peace. And I don't think God's going to tell you one way or the other. Sometimes it's free will is a beautiful thing, but me personally, my faith has played a huge role in advancing in that film career and having that belief system that there is a higher purpose and design, and trying to find that as well. And then being in the right room and getting lucky as well for we've had some great opportunities and situations where we just were in the right spot at the right time, and we were prepared.
Yeah. And to your point, man, there are, like, when you are on your journey and your pursuit of climbing to that next level, there are seasons and stages that you will go through. And sometimes those seasons take longer to get through than others. And sometimes you're stuck on certain stages for longer than you want to. But I promise you, there is not a filmmaker out there that hasn't been frustrated with a plateau in their career. And it's like they're fighting, they're trying to get to the next point. And it's like the jobs aren't coming in. You see quality passing you up, and it's competition, man. And when I look at advancing in the film industry, I look at it like a pyramid, right? When you are on the bottom starting out, there's a ton of other beginners, but it is really easy to climb to level number 2, right? And the competition is not as bad as it is getting to level 3. Like, the higher up the pyramid you go, the less competition there is, but the more fierce it is. And it's harder to climb to level 100 than it is to climb to level 2. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, if you're trying to knock out the top 1%, it's going to be a much more difficult battle than it is to knock out the 99. You know what I'm saying? Like, fighting for that 1% spot just in extremes is way more difficult than climbing to level 2.
That's beautiful. I'm stealing this pyramid thing. I'll save my car to spaceship journey analogy for later, but that is absolutely gold.
Yeah.
And I agree, man.
Yeah, it's easier to have hyper growth at the beginning than it is later on. And so the further you get into your career, the more I want to encourage you that it is going to get harder, but those who are willing to fight to advance to that next level are the ones that are going to make it.
That's how you know you're good, is when it's hard.
That's it. I love it, man. Well, hey, this has been a great episode of the Rough Cut Club. Man, I freaking enjoyed doing this, bro. This is great.
This is great, man. It's good to be in the podcast. And, I think we learn as much, I hope, as the audience, listeners. And I would love feedback. We would love to know, comment on the YouTube channel, give us a review on the podcast, wherever you get your podcast from. And DM us directly. I would love to know what
we
people
want to connect with you guys.
What topic should we cover next?
Yes.
Right? We've got a bunch coming up. We've got a bunch of interviews coming up. I'm super excited to start interviewing more people in the film industry and hearing their stories, so that all of us can continue advancing in the film career.
And if you are not connected with us already, get connected at the Rough Cut Club on all social platforms. Leave a review in the podcast section so that we can continue to reach larger audiences. And with that being said, that is a wrap on this episode of the Rough Cut Club.